My name is Allyson Best, and I am thrilled to be a part of this particular panel because, again, to all of our university technologies, to all of our startups out here, this is it. This is where you get to ask those great questions and hear some frank answers that are going to help you succeed and actually help them succeed as well. So the engagement today will be some questions. We're hoping we've allowed some extra time so that you will have lots of time, ask lots of questions, and we'll get started. First thing I want to do is just do a round of introductions. Again, my name is Allyson Best. I have the honor of working at the commercialization office for the University of Mississippi. For comparison, our portfolio is only at about 85 million, but we do have 3 technologies currently in phase 2 trials. So we're pretty proud of our bio side. Our esteemed panel.
So that means I get to start right now.
That's it.
Just as that wasn't clear. Good morning, everybody, and thanks, Allyson, and thanks for everybody at Bio and the Value for this invitation. I am Ernesto Villarini. I am Managing Director at the Community Development Venture Capital Alliance. Long name, but self-explanatory name, right? So this is an organization whose mission, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to drive risk capital, the availability, access to venture capital for community and economic development. We're a national organization based in city of New York. We're also a community development financial institution. We're part of a small group of CDFIs that actually do focus on providing equity and risk capital to businesses. So we're looking for startups to invest in, or we're looking for funds to invest in, who in turn invest in businesses in low income, mid income neighborhood, those communities that we consider, that are underserved, underinvested. All in all, to produce economic development. And then quite recently, for the past 3 years, we've been developing our own look at the business accelerator model, which really focuses on helping founders and companies raise capital. That program is called Unlock Capital, and I'm happy to talk a little bit more about that through this panel or afterwards. Finally, I am based in San Juan, Puerto Rico, where I was born and raised. Puerto Rico has one of the largest projects CDVCA has had the opportunity to run, which is the Puerto Rico Fund for Growth, $45 million fund to fund, or a little island for those of you that might not know, is home to 12 of the 20th largest biopharma companies in the world, produces 5 of the 10 best-sold or most-sold, best-selling pharma products in the market, and produces 95% of the pacemakers that are sold worldwide. Yeah, that's the little island that they've been talking about recently. That contributes more GDP to the United States than 13 states that are under us from the last data that I saw. Yeah, I mean, not to pay too much attention to it, more than it deserves. But yeah, I mean, you can't let it pass, right? I have to speak something about it. So thanks everybody, and again, thanks to Bio and the Bayou folks, for this invite.
Good morning. Thank you. And again, really appreciate James and the whole Bio on the Bayou team for inviting me to come. This is always a great event. I'm a Louisianian, and so I love New Orleans, and any reason to come here, I'm always happy to. I'm a managing partner at Grind Ventures. We're a seed stage emergent tech fund. We focus on companies whose emergent technology can be applicable to DoD and one or more of the other 16 critical industries. And, we opened this thesis in 2017. In our first portfolio, we mostly made investments in Louisiana. We recently opened our second portfolio last year and have decided, because of some of these economic components, to focus fully and exclusively on connectivity associated to Louisiana. Either located here, having a research office with one of the research institutions here. My path is maybe a little bit different than some of the other VCs. I started in leveraged buyout industry, and then kind of through that process became a partner in a joint family office. In 2017, after a real estate construction project for the military, we entered into the trusted capital marketplace. And then this whole world of emergent tech became something that we started to get ourselves heavily involved in. Since 2017, because of the impacts that research and development and research and development companies and technology transfer has to our markets and our national security, our healthcare security. We've found ourselves in really interesting partnerships and conversations with the U.S. Treasury, the Small Business Administration, Veterans Affairs, and all of the DoD, primary DoD components. And so I'm looking for startups that want to make an impact, who medical or otherwise have applicability to DoD. When you look at the number of active and retired DoD persons, they pretty much buy everything that we do in the marketplace. So I'm really interested and eager in the questions that the group might ask, and hopefully, this is beneficial to everyone who's sitting in today.
I'm Amanda Way. Oh, sorry, I'm just working down the list there. I'm Tad Weems. First, like everyone else, thanks so much, Allyson. Thanks so much, James. Thanks so much, all the staff. Thanks so much, especially to you all for coming today. Ask hard questions because we don't know the answers, because there probably are no answers to them. Second most important thing is, I looked at my picture up there. I do have other clothes, really. But I work for a company called Agilent Technologies. We're about a $7 billion revenue company. I'm in charge of early stage partnership programs. That's everything from investing. We have about 25 portfolio companies now. We have a little over $200 million invested in those companies, everything through partnerships that includes distribution partnerships through our divisions and our groups. So we're what's called a strategic investor, in that we're very focused on our business and what is important for 3 to 5 years out for our business. So with that,
Thank you.
Allyson.
Thank you, Amanda. Pat. And so for our group, Amanda could not join us today due to an illness in the family, but she said absolutely to connect with her and always through the partnering platform, and she welcomes the opportunity to talk to you. So let's start at the high level today with one of those questions that I'm sure you get asked a lot, but especially for our startups and our innovators here in the room. What makes a pitch to you? How is that differentiated? And what do you say that's going to grab my attention? Is it very specific, or is there a certain thing that you need to see?
Well, Ernesto has a great answer to this question. So
I mean, I have I think it's a good answer, but honestly, it's a simple answer. I want to know what's going to get accomplished, with that investment. I want to know how much the value of this company is going to increase. I want to know what milestones are going to be hit. I mean, honestly, that's why we're making the investment in the first place, right? We want to see the value of our investment, but the company overall increase. So it's really important for us to be able to see in a pitch, simply and plainly, how are you going to get from point A to point B, assuming that point B is that, increased value. But, from a management point of view, and we're looking at our portfolios and our investments, I love to see milestones, because that makes my job just a little bit easier, because I know then what I'm looking for when I look at this company within a quarter or, during the middle of the year. And if those milestones aren't being hit, then, that's where my first questions come from.
Brent?
Sorry, I turned mine off. I want to make sure there's not echo. Pretty similar answer. I would say, like, within a pitch or a 90-second interaction or a LinkedIn direct message or otherwise, one of the things that I'm looking for fast from a startup is that they can demonstrate an understanding of the problem that they solve and the magnitude to some extent of this problem. I hear features and benefits. I mean, those are relevant. Team is relevant. Their strategy is certainly relevant. But it seems to be something that I see really regularly, that the companies kind of just roll down a very standard, hey, we have a safe note, we're this team, here's the IP, here's what it does. And I'm a finance person, right? So I'm not a scientist, and I'm not an artificial intelligence person or anything like that. But I am an expert in understanding the market economics and knowing what problem you solve, how to measure it, and how to develop a milestone plan so that we can measure you towards that goal.
Wow, 3 different answers from 3 different VCs.
What they need.
Technology, I'm a strategic investor. We're really, really arrogant. We think we know our markets. We have $7 billion in revenue. So you coming up and saying, oh, the $1 billion slide. My market's $1 billion and I'm going to get there. We're a $7 billion company. There's not a single product that's worth $1 billion in our entire portfolio. So I don't think you're going to get there. I need to know exactly what it is you're going after. I understand the broader market. I need to know what the technology is so that, because that's what we're investing in. We're investing in the technology. As our CFO said, Tad, don't lose money, but that's not the primary goal here, right? A little different. Three for three.
And such great advice. Thank you very much. One of the things that we love the most about this panel is the ability to embrace and actually fund really early seed technologies. And so, Tad, let's go right back to you. In terms of when you're looking at something that's early, which you've seen a lot yesterday and you're going to see again today, and when they may not have the commercialization path set in stone yet, or it may need to change, how do you vet those and how do you suggest that they go about that when it's that early?
It does need to change. But what we need to understand is what you think the path is. We need that you have gone through that thought process, that you don't just show us, as I said, that $1 billion slide and say, and all the detailed technical stuff. And we need to know that how you're going to deliver the product, how you're going to get there. It goes to the milestone comment. What are those triggers that you've thought through? We know that we're going to replace the board of directors, and the board of directors is going to help you with your strategy as you go forward. It will evolve over time, but what have you thought through to that point? So that's important to us.
And Ernesto, in your work, especially with emerging markets, early stage, I'm sure your folks are facing the same thing. How are you making those connections for them and that laying that path for them?
I'll add to Tad's thought that one of the things, just one of the things that we're looking for when looking at companies at these stage and in these locations is that, they've taken the time to look under every stone. I mean, literally take advantage of everything that's in your location, your region, what your community, has to offer. And that you're, leveraging everything you can. I mean, that doesn't mean to, stray away from the commercialization path. We're a strong believer also in that. Even at the earliest stages, you have to have that, vision or view that, that's what you want to pursue at the end of the day, even though you might be, pivoting along the way, as you collect information again from others in your and from your intended market.
So, Brent, when you have an early stage innovation in front of you and it's facing a pivot or it's facing a change, what is it about that management team and those innovators that makes you have confidence in what that is? I mean, are they coming to you earlier than later? Are they asking for advice? What makes you say, "Yep, that's a good change, and let's go"?
Make sure I'm turned on. The earlier in my fund now, we're at seed stage. So, but when I started to get into early stage investment as an angel, I did a lot of pre-seed stuff. And we also directly license intellectual property where we have to assemble a team around this. Our accelerator function will produce some R&D capacity and work with some early clients, and then we'll try to help them, through that customer discovery driven process, figure out what potential in early commercialization looks like. So when, kind of past the IP potential and where we think it could go, when we're really, really early, it becomes even more important about the founding team. At our accelerator fund and our network, we have a process and a platform or a structure that makes two things, or very focused on making two things easier, not to say they're easy. One of them is raising capital and the other one's validating market. And so I'm looking at track record. I use this notion of hedgehog concept, this combination of them understanding what drives their economic engine, what they think they can be the best at, and what they're passionate about. Because the pivots, the valleys, the highs, the lows are pretty challenging. And whenever we're really, really early and there's a lot of work that has to be done to the product or the intellectual property, it becomes much more about that founding team, albeit they are leaving for sure, right? And I don't say that in a negative or controversial way. If they're successful, they're going to exit and then they're going to leave. And if they're unsuccessful, they're going to leave. And so, so understanding that the team is dialed in on our set of goals and then looking at whatever peripherals or attribution or track record they may have that would allow us to feel like they're a good bet to achieve or pursue those goals.
Can I add something? Really? Yeah, sure. Okay. Teachability. That's really, really important. We have a company in our portfolio. The CEO is not teachable. We were sure he was. He's now got to go. And these are really, really tough decisions on the part of a board of directors. We made that decision as a board independent of him. He did it. He's doing everything he can to fight it, but he is not listening. He's not pivoting. We need to pivot. He's got to go. These are tough decisions, but when you look at yourself, if you're not teachable, understand that and go in and say, I'm the technical person. I'm not teachable. We need a CEO, right? Who can come in and do this. But teachability is really important to us.
I'd love to stay there for a minute if you're willing to share for Ernesto and Brent, any other, because sometimes hearing what didn't work is as important to these folks as hearing what does. So any other non-confidential examples you can give where that just did not work?
Yeah, I can give one. We're in Louisiana, and so it was intellectual property associated to a school. So I'm going to name it by category. It was a UAS application. And on paper, the two co-founders looked perfect. Energetic, young, smart, good attribution in their track record. One of them, a really wide stack of technical capabilities. And something that, let's see, we led their seed round. They overcalled it by 200 or so percent, like 205%. So they called over twice as much as they set to. So they really knew, I think, through that first stage, how to leverage our network and our platform. But then whenever it came down to beginning to execute and work together as a team, basic life things started to divide these two co-founders up. In theory, they're on the same page. They like to see the company do what it's doing. But even just 3 years apart in age, both of them under 30, one of them's lifestyle desires. And, if you're 27 years old and you want to have a family, you probably don't need to be second year in a startup unless you really, really believe in it. And so these divisions started to happen amongst those two co-founders. And whenever a drone robotics company loses its electrical, mechanical, cyber engineering, 3 engineering degrees, right? So when we lose that, it really didn't matter how good the other guy was. And this was something that, we do reports and disk analysis and all of these ways to try to answer what's going to happen, right? Which then the human element and emotion starts to come in. And so there was no real predicator that this was going to occur. And once we dug in, the board of directors took the company over from both of them. And initially we thought we were going to be helping remove one founder, and then it became obvious to us that this kind of dynamic had been going on since prior to receiving a check from us. And then I felt like now I can't trust the CEO as a result of they needed to talk to us about this. And chances are, if they would have had me or Grant or Michael intervene in this process, either we might not have written a check to them, we probably would have organized the company or advised that they organize the company differently. And, 19 months after it was written, the technical co-founders out. We recovered the IP. Now we're going through a licensing process, and it's a loss, right? It sucks. It's a loss. It's not an exit. It's not a secondary. It's a recovery. And so that's one of, I've had 3 that look some variant of like that.
Ernesto?
Yeah, happy to share about a recent experience similar to what Tad was sharing about, backing a founder that's teachable, that's coachable. Um, However, you know, my experience on the board at this company over the past couple of years has taught me many things. One of those being that ownership and control are definitely two different things.
Yes.
And being able to exercise control, again, asking ourselves that same question, did we reach a point where we have to fire this person? Yeah, I mean, you're the owner, the board decides, right? And you can, take that next step. But then what are the repercussions? When you do that, you have to think about that as well. It's not just about the operation of the business and, taking out the person who's leading that operation. Also, also this person, is the key in raising capital for the business. And in our case, I have to admit, we struggled with that question for a year because of that. You know, it's hard to get redundancy when you're working, with a very early stage company and you have to rely on, key people to do key things. So that's a learning there. And then it's hard, for board members again to exercise any sort of management, that effectively, helps take the company, pivot, and go in another direction. And of course, you'd say to yourself, well, if you're doing this change, then you just bring somebody else in. The person you want to bring in, might not find that opportunity as enticing as it might have been, at the very early onset, when you made the investment. So I guess, my learning there is the timing, right? I mean, you have to pull the trigger, at the right time. If you wait too long, it gets harder and costlier.
Yeah, and just you heard from all three of us. Get a board of directors that has the best intent of the company in mind, not your best intent in mind, because it's different. And the company will fail if you're not teachable and the board are your people. So take advice.
Perfect segue. So let's talk money. Let's talk about in terms of when everything is going well, right? Hopefully, we're going to move on from either non-dilutive seed stage, and we're really trying to make that scale. What is important to you in terms of connecting either to your own funds or to other ones to actually start moving that money to that next level and scaling?
Can you clarify that question a little? Rephrase that question. I have a really simple mind.
When they're ready to scale from seed funding to actual, we're ready to start looking at series and all that. What is it that's most important to you when we're talking about moving to the money, the higher pots of money?
I mean, sure. I'll take this opportunity to talk a little bit about our approach. As I said, we focused on supporting founders and building companies in underinvested, underserved markets. That usually means you don't have the luxury of specializing in any industry. That usually means, you're out there looking for the best opportunity, that location or that region, has to offer. So we often look for the specialist to lead an investment and us to support, that investor in that round. So, we're typically co-investing with others that are either in our network, or people that we've, been introduced to. The other thing that we're looking for, definitely, I know it's implied, but I'll say it explicitly, is impact. We're looking to make an investment that provides an impact in the local community. Again, our main metric is economic development. So we're looking for wealth building, jobs, quality jobs in that location, in that region. But hey, we're also looking for companies that are out there to solve a real and hurtful problem for that community. So those two things are important in our approach.
Brent, what about you in terms of when it's time to scale and you're going to be looking at different metrics? How do you help those teams work with that?
fundamentally something that I can see as a major kind of hurdle for founding teams. Most of the time, if your typical founding teams are going to be, they're going to be technical and or sort of sales marketing oriented, right? Point being, not strong financial acumen. When you get to bridge, when you get to Series A, and then like start to talk about med device as a bigger theme here, the capital stack gets super complex fast. And that founding team, one of the major predicators that I've seen in
Hey,
my
Brent, do you want to explain capital stack to them?
yeah, absolutely. The varying types of money that they're going to need, from debt instrumentation to equity capital. This arena here has a lot of non-dilutive grants and contracts. In our state, there's a tax credit and subsidy stack. So in this seed stage, this has gotten more and more complex. It seems like every handful of years. So one of the biggest predicators is the ability to sell, and then to gain that financial acumen. And it really is the whole founding team's job. The CTO needs to know some of the numbers. He needs to know and drive some of the economics. Whenever, kind of similar to him, when we write a check into a round, we're usually one of 6 or 7 people in our network. And generally in that round, we're 10 to 40, 50% of the total funds. So in these evaluation processes, really way before they get there, the handful of banks that we work with that look for our portfolio, look to get deals out of our portfolio, that invest alongside us, really looking for those founders to take some ownership and starting to understand the finances of their business and the relevance of how that is going to impact their ability to get that Series A check, the ability to go up market if they're so lucky to an IPO, make other deals. This kind of backs itself up into OpEx and vendor selection and things like that. So because it's a large gap and our model has us, I'm not going to say that I won't write a check if one of my network members won't follow it, but most of the time I won't. So looking for them to be able to demonstrate to my banking and other investor partners that they're going to be able to keep the company moving.
Can we stay on that for a second? Because this is a great one that I personally deal with my innovators. When they think they're having a conversation with you, they think you are the entire conversation in terms of, but you just mentioned the questions you're getting from your network. So can you give a highlight on 1 or 2 of those that you hear the most when you're looking to write that check and why they may say no?
Yeah. So I'll give an example right now. We have a company that's in our accelerator that has got a lot of good opportunity. They're a green energy application, a hydrogen application specifically, and they got pretty good success early. We were able to put a MILCON spec, a military construction requirement specification, inside of their prototype build, and then the Defense Innovation Unit provided them a pretty substantial amount of capital to build that prototype for an Army and Marine expeditionary use. So now here comes the second order. First one was $1.5 million, the next one's $7.5 million. Now it's a banking conversation, right? Because they're raising around, they've raised a little bit of money, they have a couple $1 million left open in their round, and they have about a 35% net margin plus the tax credit recovery for the second contract. We can't sell 2/3 of the business. There's some items that, if they wanted to, and we did, will cut them out of a lot of the programs that they're in, right? They become over half owned by VC. Now they're ineligible for all sorts of the stuff that they need to go and test out with. And it's pretty early in it. We haven't written them a check yet, right? They're 7 weeks into our accelerator. And I called a couple of the banks that we work with, and I said, hey, I have a good problem for us to solve, but it's way earlier than we normally solve it. And so we need to get you guys incorporated. And then when we started the team has no CFO, right? Okay. They have a CPA that
They have you, Brent.
well, they do. They do. They don't have a real board of directors that's formed. So
Get a board of directors. That's been
and I'm gonna land on this point a couple of times since you brought it up too. They do have a board, but a real board of directors, right? So board of directors who's got a vision for a company and an understanding of how to make it move in that direction, right? Whereas the current board is often made up of folks that are wanting to be helpful. So in that process, it's a problem now for them to solve. Okay. Got a corporate sales guy, we've got a lawyer on the team, got everybody except a finance person. And so now we and the two banks that are going to participate in whether or not they are able to accept this let contract. And then we had to then get involved directly with the Defense Innovation Unit. And then they showed us a couple of other very, very low cost financing programs that if we and Origin Bank assemble a capital stack, they'll fill it out. And so they're in the acceleration stage, MVP 1. And now all of a sudden this conversation of highly complex capital stack is coming in, and having instrumentation, partners to the accelerator, commercial partners on our end, fills substantial gaps, but it's going to end up changing how the company is organized completely.
And how was that team with the timelines that you were expecting? I mean, that's not a 6-month conversation.
No, so I expected the first stage of the contract that they're on was around a year. So I expected them at least to finish it before the second order came in. So they got to the first of 5 field tests on it, and a second order came in. So probably 3 to 4 quarters earlier than anticipated.
Very good. Todd, how about you in terms of your network and making those scale up decisions?
Well, no one likes me, so no. So explaining how we work, and you heard it both from Brent and Ernesto. I have 14 VCs that I talk to monthly or quarterly. These are my friends. These are people in my industry. They're outside of my industry. We overlap. You draw a Venn diagram. There's always an overlap to them. Some of them are huge. Some of them can't write a check for less than $50 million. Some of them are small. They can't write a check for more than $1 million. But I talk to them because they have exposure to ideas, companies, everything out there, the same as everyone else do. We don't do anything alone. We syndicate. Strategic investors are known as stupid money because we don't know how to value companies. They know how to value companies because they're investors. So we rely on them. They rely on us because I have 18,000 people behind me who will tell me whether it's a perpetual motion machine and it'll never work, right? So, but you also have to be careful. So anyway, I have those 14 people. They have 14 people. They have 14 people. So again, when you're talking to me, you're talking to the 14 people behind me. You've got to make whatever that pitch is, whatever that sentence is, that's the essence of your company. I have to leave with that so that I can repeat it. See if anyone else is interested in the network. Right. So that's how I work. I don't know. You see, I told Allyson ahead of time, no matter what she asks, I'm going to answer my own questions, whatever it is.
And we're all the better for it.
You and I have suffer from that same thing.
Yeah,
Right?
that's right.
We're all the better for it.
Smart money, dumb money. Right. Got it. Yeah, let's take away.
Ernesto, talk about in terms of, especially in your space, when you are dealing with global markets every day, and reaching out to those investor pools, is that actually the way the money's working right now? Is that more of a challenge, less of a challenge, or how do you deal with your network?
I mean, there's 2 answers though there. I mean, and based on your premise of working globally. So as a CDFI, we're in the domestic market because as a CDFI, we're federally funded. And we're putting federal dollars to work. However, yes, we have invested in funds, who have that larger outreach, right? So they're looking in-house, but they're also looking outside of the domestic market into international markets. To answer your question, I want to go back to a comment Brent made. He said something like, reaching out to my network, and I want to know if, I don't know if I'm quoting you here, they're going to write that later check, or if they're going to be interested in this company, maybe not this round, but the next round. And that's something, that shouldn't be overlooked. You do not necessarily, as an investor, want to spend all your bullets, meaning reach out to everybody in your network that can be able to come into this round and this investment in the very, first round. You want to leave, some dry powder for yourself to make additional investments. But you also want to be able to reach out to others, at later stages, even, such as those investments that might provide you, with an exit of your own investment. So that plays out, both domestically and internationally in some of the funds, that we've seen, and that's part of our assessment. So I'll talk about specific fund that it's based in San Juan, Puerto Rico, Moro Ventures. Half of their portfolio is on the island or in the U.S., and half of it is mostly not them. It's Latin America. And one of the questions that we've learned to ask them, because I have to admit, it's been a learning process for us, is who are you networking with if you're investing in Colombia or if you're investing in some, who's going to provide, the additional capital that company is going to need because you're investing at a very early stage. So, we asked founders about what is your path to commercialization? And of course, we want to know these things, right? How are you going to distribute these product? What are your distribution channels going to be? What your partner is going to be? But as investors, just so you know, we have to ask the same questions to ourselves, and to our partners. How are we going to be able to, continue to invest in this company if that's needed, or what financing, needs to be provided at later stages that makes sense and is aligned, with the growth path that it takes. And in looking at those, markets outside of the U.S., then you start to look at, other things like what are the local regulations, and what non-financial variables will we have to maybe deal with, to continue to support, that company, and get a value from that investment.
Yeah, and this is, especially for our university folks, this is why you hear these questions out of our offices as early as possible, because either the origination or the path that you may take with this capital, if it does have either export control or any other elements, which is extremely important to the United States government right now, that's why we have to ask those questions. And it's just invaluable to be thinking about it from the beginning. And that's why even general questions like, where's your path, helps everyone answer those questions. Want to talk a little bit about trends you're seeing. I know we're in an election year with the markets, but what are you seeing now, not just in bio, but in any of the sectors that you're working in, but especially for our audience today in bio? What do you see over the next year in terms of any major changes or any volatility that makes you a little nervous?
AI. It's been really interesting, Allyson, over the last 18 months. Well, let's see. I've been doing this for 8 years, and before that, I was doing leverage buyouts. So we came from the same core. This is the third time I've seen AI in every freaking pitch deck I see. It scares me that when people put it in there, and they're putting it in there just to put it in there, we're a technical company. We have massive amounts of information coming off of our instruments. That needs true AI. So we're interested in that kind of deep learning, machine learning. We think that's a game changer. We think automation's a game changer throughout our industries. But just AI for the sake of AI. Linear regression is not AI, by the way. So
You've set up James's panel beautifully.
Anyway, so that's what I'm seeing: automation and true interpretation of data, simplifying it for people.
Brent.
I would be remiss to not say that I don't see the same thing. I had a quick meet yesterday evening with a founder who has a really interesting edge mesh network. And so I put him on with Lumen, who's our partner for technical validation and often deploys and tests a lot of that stuff for us. And I'm getting to where my wife is a PR person. So I asked her after dinner, I said, help me ask the question right to the founders, because in AI is in everything, but it's not. I've invested in AI. I've had a couple of exits out of AI. I've had ML exit too, and there's differences here. But well,
smart.
I'll tie back to his and how that success happened in AI. But So I got a PR answer of what's the purpose of this AI integration? Okay. And in this particular founder's case, from my just quick evaluation, because it's so tight within our thesis, I looked at it and said, hey, actually, your secure broadband network that's ITAR eligible that could be a railway framework for AI to crawl over and do jobs on. And so that's your orientation to AI. And so I think we see this ocean of people who believe that AI needs to be in everything because it's going to get one of us to write a check, right? And that's a premise. I saw this in cybersecurity SaaS applications, especially post-COVID. We're really just starting to understand what cybersecurity looks like. A lot of this is the hardware and firmware level. A lot of the early stuff that's come out there that's cyber or antivirus tools or similar network monitoring tools, which do have certainly cyber implications. But if it's real AI, kind of talking to one of those partners that's an upstream, Lockheed Martin Ventures, because we do this defense-related ITAR stuff, we have to have those types of entities, Raytheon or similar, who have this focus in their thesis. And so early on, kind of, I said, hey, it's 2018. I'm 1 year into doing Emergent. And I've got a lot of AI opportunities and I'm getting a lot of demand signal from our government partners. What can you tell me about it? And he said, well, at least right now, if it's real AI, it's true AI, you make a bet on it, we'll make sure you make money off of it. But the market is not there anymore. Right. And so it's changing a little bit. I think another thing is founder expectations. That is a pretty substantial
Very
trend.
good one.
Kind of, I want them to believe and make impact to solving a world's major problem. That is not the reason why solely I am investing. I have an economic outcome that I'm looking for. It makes a lot of jobs. It makes a lot of impact. I want to see those things happen. It isn't what solely top of the pyramid motivates me or my partners, at least our group, to make a move.
Ernesto, before we turn it over to questions from the audience, any opportunities or challenges you see on the horizon?
Sure. Opportunities, and for those of you who were here yesterday, this was, sprinkled around in some of the panels. It's been interesting to see how some nonprofits, foundations, and some outfits out there have looked to step out of their comfort zone, which are usually just making grants, and actually do investment type work and feeling venturous in what they're doing. And for researchers and people who are at very early stages, that could be a potential source of support there for you, not just the non-dilutive financing, but again, additional resources that could be available to you from those sources. So yesterday was a mention about Michael J. Fox Foundation, and I've seen others do that. I've also, it's been also very interesting to see that while the corporate VC space, it has grown. I mean, it's definitely has grown, but it continues to grow. But but it's been interesting for me to see that smaller corporations, even though they might not be, setting up their own shop, they're looking to partner, and support others. So there are, smaller companies, mid-level companies that are looking for that innovation, that commercialization, to get into that space that way. And lastly, you mentioned November 5th, and yes, election year and election coming up next week. I don't know what's going to happen, but irrespectively of what happens, federal government is huge. A lot of programs there, that are going to stay, that, provide opportunities that are going to continue to be out there. And again, I know that many of these are cumbersome, and some of us would rather avoid getting into them. I'm looking at Chris because we've talked about this. He knows this very well. But again, those are resources that are available to you. And if you're, able to get in and stay the course, those are resources that, you can leverage.
And just on Ernesto's point, anyone who's talked to me in the audience here who said, how do you raise money from VCs? Right now, I say, don't. Go get a grant. Grant. Valuations suck right now. They have never been worse in my entire experience here. I have a company that went out 3 years ago that was had a valuation of $120 million, and they raised $40 million. They just went out. They have $4 million valuation on a raise of 20. So they have lost all the company. So, and anyway, grants.
Critical
All right,
point.
Allyson, sorry.
All right, let's open it up for questions, please. There.
Hi, good morning. Sorry. I work with startups who are getting ready to go for funding. And so we work on their pitch decks and we work on their pitch practice, and it's pitching and pitching and pitching. What makes them stand out to get to the next level where they can talk to the people behind you, where they can get to your network and the money? You see so many pitch decks and they're all the same. Here is my heartrending story. Here is my tam sam sam. Here are my competitors. What can I do to help my startups stand out immediately?
It's completely different for all three of us. For me, it's technology. I need to understand what the core technology is. I'm a strategic investor. Again, I'm arrogant. We think we know our markets. If you don't fit in our market with your technology, thank you very much. We love you. Goodbye. Ernesto.
I'll share this little piece of advice to the entrepreneurs in the room, to the founders in the room, to answer your question. Try to get your hands on VC's investment memo. Final memo. Look that through. Look at what they're looking for. Get to know what exactly, what are those factors that will produce that decision of whether or not it's up or the thumbs down. I know that's a general answer to your question, but something that not all entrepreneurs think about. It's in fact kind of like a cheat sheet.
Ernesto, can you explain what the memo is?
Yeah.
Because they probably don't know.
Yeah.
But they're internal documents.
So it's usually, I mean, by the time you're at a final memo, you're looking at a 30 to 40 page piece that provides a summary for investors about the entire company. And you guys, correct me from yours, but in the investment memos that we prepare, or the ones, that we want to review, there are three key things for us, particularly for, companies at a very early stage. We really want to understand the team. So a lot of information, not just on the core team, the founders, but also on the team that they're looking to build. And if a significant, considerable amount of money is going to be put into hiring people, I want to understand, what it is that you're going to hire, and, what's the team that you're going to build. Second, and again, we preface the previous question with when the commercialization path is not clear. Yes, I understand that at very early stages, but for us in a memo that has to be clear. That go to market has to be clear. And then finally, I have to see financials and some non-financials that give me those milestones that I talked about earlier in terms of what should happen, with this company in the near term, midterm, and at later stages. That's what I'm looking for, Ted.
I think we have time for just one more question.
I just wanted to follow up or pull the thread on the board of directors discussion, because Tad, I thought you made some great points, which is really what struck me was the idea of building a board that innately understands the company as an entity, as this thing of ours, beyond just the founder, or as well as the founders and co-founders, such that they can see that entity through regardless of the implications or problems that you have with leadership. That prompted me to think about my board of directors in a way I hadn't before. And I'm just wondering if there's any other
Fire
thoughts
them.
how to get them or how to identify those individuals to realize, hey, I'm looking at this from that company perspective and not just because I think the founders and co-founders have a vision.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to say this for Allyson because I'm sitting in her seat because there's the bell. So thanks everyone for joining us this morning. Thank you, Ernesto. Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Allyson, especially for everything. And as you can see, we're pretty shy. So we're happy to talk to you all day about anything. All right. So take care, everyone.
Thanks.